Football starts right now.
Hello and welcome to Bear Football here on the Barroom Network. John Buffon alongside Aldo Gandia. The Chicago Bears 2021 campaign is officially in the books. They are outscored 28-3 in the second half against the Minnesota Vikings. They fall 31-17 to end the 2021-2022 season with a record of 6-11. Andy Dalton threw the ball 48 times, something you always think is a recipe for success. Although any takeaways from this game that is even slightly diverges your opinion from what it was going into the game?
No, not at all. In fact, the game was a perfect emblem of the Matt Nagy era in Chicago. The game started off okay, 17-0 lead, and then it progressively got worse with the final possession for the Vikings yielding 3 points, and then they come out to start the second half and march downfield for 75 yards and score a touchdown. And then from then on, it's as if the Chicago Bears started to pack. They really, really did not care. The errors on the part of the defense, which I was applauding in the first after in our halftime show, the performance by that defense in the second half was embarrassing. The play calling throughout the game, but especially in the second half by Matt Nagy or Bill Lazor, whoever the hell called those plays, was embarrassing. The final tally of everything involved with this game was embarrassing to the city of Chicago, was embarrassing to Chicago Bears fans, and hopefully is embarrassing enough for George McCaskey and Ted Phillips for them to make wholesale changes and for them to look in the mirror and start to question their decision-making over the last 11 years since George McCaskey has been chairman, and even longer since Ted Phillips has been president of this team. This was an embarrassment. This game clearly showed that this franchise is in total disarray.
Yeah, and you summed it up perfectly. This was a good representation of the Matt Nagy era. Started off pretty well. People just like people thought 2018 obviously was a big improvement, and then it just continuously got worse. No adjustments made, and here we are in the cesspool that is the Chicago Bears. So there needs to be. I think we know it's inevitable that Matt Nagy is going to be shown the door. But then comes the Ryan Pace thing. Does he get shown the door as well? And I think after watching this year, and I'm not going to make a judgment after this particular game, but when you look at this, he's been here for 7 years, 0 playoff victories, and a multitude of missteps that have cost this franchise. If you want to just go ahead and say Brian Pace is drafted well in the 4th, 5th, 6th round, go ahead. Yeah, that's something. There's something to be said for that. The problem is in 7 years, he hasn't gotten the head coach right. And up until this year, may not have gotten the quarterback position right. And the jury's still out on Justin Fields. We don't know. But the most important things about being the GM, he has not done well, which is get stability at the head coach and quarterback position. So I think that's probably enough to say we need to make a change when it comes to the GM position if you're George McCaskey and Ted Phillips. But much like you said, there has to be a wholesale culture change with this franchise. This has been something that's been going wrong for since 1985, really. the fact that you have no stability, no sustained success. I think up until last year, the Bears only made back-to-back playoff appearances twice in 3 decades or something of that nature. So there's a real problem with this sustained success that they can't grasp it. They can't have any stability. They can't put it all together for a long period of time, where it's a let's do whatever we can and maybe we'll get a flash in the pan season like 2018. Let's do everything we can and get a flash in the pan season where they make the playoffs and win the division, and then it's just okay, let's rebuild for another 4 to 5 years. That can't keep happening. So at the end of today, you're going to see Matt Nagy's final post-game press conference. I'm interested to see what they ask Matt Nagy. Not that I care too much about his answers at this point because he's not going to be around tomorrow. But I am interested to see what kind of questions do get lobbed his way. More importantly, I'm interested in what questions get lobbed even higher than Matt Nagy. Questions get lobbed at Ryan Pace. Is he going to do an end of the year presser if he's retained? What's George McCaskey going to say if he is berated with questions? So there's just so much that needs to be done, and it starts literally right now. We thought Matt Nagy was going to be out as Bears head coach before this, but now he will be. And the official announcement hasn't been made yet, obviously. But after today, the wheels get in motion for a complete overhaul at Hallis Hall.
Let's welcome in Danny Shimon, co-host of Bear Truth and Draft on Tap. Danny, your overall thoughts on this disaster of a finish to the Bears 2021-22 season?
Man, where do I start, guys? Seriously, like, where do I start? First of all, the first thing I think of is relief. Thank God it's done. It's over. The Matt Nagy era is over with. We don't have to see him trying to, play call anymore. But a way to go out. It's an atypical way of a Matt Nagy game here. The play calling was just horrendous in terms of you're up 14-0. You blew how many multiple chances in the red zone, 4th and 1 3 times, and you throw on all three attempts. You get sacked, I think, all 3 times. It's just the way Matt Nagy should have gone out. He went out being himself. Be you, Matt Nagy, is what I tweeted, and that's how he's going out. He's going out just being Matt Nagy, and he was hell bent. I'm going to show the NFL, this is my resume tape. I'm going to show them that I can coach football. I can draw up these fancy plays. Well, guess what? Same thing happened that we've been seeing the last 3.5 years. You couldn't put points on the board. Your team got into the run zone and they crapped down their pants and they couldn't line up accordingly. Out of a timeout, you have either a penalty or missed some confusion on offense. The same old things happening that we've seen the last 3.5 years. So that's why my big thing was relief. Let's get the official press release that Matt Nagy has been relieved of his duties, and let's move on here now and see what's goes on with the rest of the organization. Is Ryan Pace kept? Is he gone? Are there sweeping changes? Or is it going to just be a coaching change? But you know what? It sucks that we ended up being 6-11. We could have been 7-10. Not that really makes a difference. However, it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth to see how this game just went down. But again, it was typical Matt Nagy coached football.
Yeah, it's infuriating for all of us Bears fans, and but it's not just about Matt Nagy. It really, really is also about Ryan Pace. You have to look at the fact that during his tenure with the Chicago Bears, he has 21 games, including the 2 playoff losses, 21 games under 500. 7 years as the general manager of the Chicago Bears, and you're 21 games under 500, and there are rumors that you're going to get promoted and that you're going to be responsible, you being Ryan Pace, be responsible for the hiring of the next general manager, or at the least that you will remain as general manager and get an opportunity to pick your 3rd head coach when you failed miserably with John Fox, even if he was assigned to you, as many reports have indicated, but you picked Matt Nagy, who has 6 games experience as an offensive coordinator, never had experience as a head coach, and you had failed 1st-round draft picks. You traded away something that makes Danny Shimon really mad. You traded away multiple draft picks. The record for Ryan Pace to remain anywhere in the Chicago Bears organization is just overwhelmingly bad. And I get it. Matt Nagy dwarfed dwarfs Ryan Pace's ineptitude with his own ineptitudes, but we should not forget that Ryan Pace is a big part of this problem, just like George McCaskey is, and just like Ted Phillips is, but those guys are harder to get rid of than the general manager. And I know that people are saying, well, then who's going to pick Ryan Pace's successor, Aldo, if he is relieved? I don't care. I don't care. You've got to eliminate the tumor and hope that it is not malignant. And so that is where we're at as an organization. We have to make some drastic moves, starting at the top, as high up as the top as possible.
And to your point, Aldo, this Ryan Pace's tenure here, and I've said this many times, seems to have been him chasing his tail or trying to put Band-Aids on things. So whenever you the Kevin White pick didn't work out, you got to go get Allen Robinson, which did work out as far as the Band-Aid goes, but you have to pay him. You go get Mitch Trubisky, that doesn't work out, so you got to go get Nick Foles and you got to get Andy Dalton. Leonard Floyd, even though he's playing well, you let him go, so you can say it didn't work out because you didn't bring him back on the fifth-year option. So you got to go get Robert Quinn, which obviously is working, but it costs a lot of money to do that. You go out and you draft Adam Shaheen in the second round. Doesn't work. You got to go get Jimmy Graham. Then you got to draft Cole Kmet in the second round again. So it's constantly trying to make up for your previous sins by going out and either throwing money at it or investing more draft picks to make up for your bust draft picks. And so, and as much as I appreciate a guy being aggressive in the draft and understanding what he wants, you traded up to get Anthony Miller. And you traded up a couple. I mean, the David Montgomery pick works out. You trade up to get Travis Gibson. I understand it does work out, but when it doesn't, you're sacrificing more draft capital for a person that doesn't work out. So there is plenty of basis to fire Ryan Pace. I completely would be understand that. I would be okay with it. Whether or not they're going to do that, I don't know, because I know they love Ryan Pace, and they're probably going to end up punishing him by giving him more money and promoting him, giving him some other kind of, he's in charge of the Arlington Heights project. So they go ahead, Ryan, go ahead and take care of that. But I just feel like there needs to be more football minds. And although you brought this point up weeks ago, is sometimes when you're a legacy, you're not really born in, or you're not really ready for it. And the Chicago Bears were, I don't want to say gifted, but passed down to the McCaskey family and the people at hand. They are there because the family owns it. It's a family business. It was kind of just gifted to them, or it was coming down through a legacy. And whenever that happens, the football minds sometimes aren't there anymore. George Halas, football mind. NFL doesn't exist without George Halas. However, now it's the Halas-McCaskey family. And so bringing in another football mind, I know that they have to get that hire right, and they could screw that up, and they could screw up the GM hiring, and they could screw up all this other stuff. I get that. But at some point, you got to start bringing in real football minds to make real football decisions. And I don't think Ted Phillips is the right person, as much as he doesn't meddle. And then there's a report saying he might step away from football. But does he meddle or doesn't he? So there's always a lot of confusion with that crap. So bringing in real football people at least gives you a better fighting chance than having an accountant do it, as far as I'm concerned. But we'll see. We'll see if they're just going to say, oh, Matt Nagy's a problem, let's switch it out. Because I said this last year, it seems like the Bears just, whenever the motor blows up, they just keep changing the tires on the car. And whenever you understand what the real problem is, the real root of the problem is the culture and the people at the top. But let's just keep switching out the head coach. It's if you look at the culmination of the last 40 years, the fact that they haven't won anything throughout those years isn't just Matt Nagy's fault. It isn't just Ryan Pace's fault. It isn't just Phil Emery's fault. It isn't just Mark Trestman or John Fox's fault. It isn't just Jay Cutler's fault or Mitch Trubisky's fault. It's a culmination of all of this ineptitude. And what has been the one constant? Ted Phillips and the McCaskey family. So I don't know how. I don't know how you change that.
In my opinion, one of the most difficult things for family-owned businesses and organizations is the whole thing about inheritance. Do you pass on the management of the team to one of your children or some of your children and risk them messing up the entire franchise? We know that George Halas didn't have total confidence in somebody from the family managing the team when he was ready to move on. That's why he brought in Jim Finks. Now, Muggs Hallis was going to be the successor, but he knew that Muggs needed more time to get ready to become the president of the team. And so he brought in Jim Finks, and Jim Finks very methodically started to build a world championship team. He started by drafting offensive linemen and defensive linemen and creating a monster of the Midway's defense. And that 85 Super Bowl team has Jim Finks's fingerprints all over it. And so now you fast forward to this point, and so we have to question whether Virginia McCaskey and George McCaskey don't have to be honest and say there really isn't anybody in the family who can handle this job, given that so many things in the National Football League have changed. It's gone from $1 million business to a multi-billion-dollar business. And with all of the technology changes, where it's so quick for the consumers of football to yell and scream about ineptitude, this has gotten so bad that it's I can't believe that they can sleep at night knowing that the entire football world and many people outside of football are mocking this franchise, and that's a stain on them. And poor George Hallis, his legacy is being tarnished by what his family has done to this franchise. And I'm interested in learning from Danny about the Ryan Pace, because I know he has sort of been a little bit on the ledge there of whether Pace should stay or go. Danny, your thoughts?
Yeah, guys, I might get the hate emails, the hate tweets tonight, but I'm not in the camp that Ryan Pace needs to go. I'm sorry. I know he's made mistakes, and you guys eloquently both laid out all the decisions, from the bad coaches he's hired to some of the first round busts he's had in terms of, draft picks and all that stuff. But, guys, if I think we can all agree that the Bears probably lost 3 games this year that they could have won. They should have won today. They should have beat Pittsburgh, and they should beat the 49ers. Those and the Ravens. That's 4 games right there. This team could be easily 10-7 and go into the playoffs. To me, this team has talent, and that talent was acquired by Ryan Pace. Yes, Kevin White was a bust. Yes, the Trubisky pick was a bust. But then Darnell Mooney was a hit. David Montgomery was a hit. We have a young tandem on the right side of the offensive line, and Larry Borman, possibly Tevin Jenkins, that could possibly be the future of the offensive line. James Daniels, I'm a big fan of still. I think he's a future center. You go on the defense side, Travis Gibson, Roquan Smith, some of the other players that he's brought in. He's had good success, somewhat moderate good success in the draft as well, especially in the later rounds. So I think this is a guy but all these GMs have bad picks. Kevin Colbert, Pittsburgh Steelers. He's the one who drafted Artie Burns first in the first round, guys. And we're talking about Artie Burns sucks. Remember, Colbert drafted him in the first round. He's drafted James Washington in the second round. He's been a bust. Bill Belichick's draft record has been horrendous. But the thing is, you have to be able to take your misses and kind of offset them with some nice, sweet, under the radar kind of free agent signings. And I think Angelo Blackson's been a nice free agent pickup. Mario Edwards has been a nice free agent pickup, unless he's doing, dumb things off the field and also getting stupid penalties on the field. So I think he's made some positive moves here to go ahead and maintain his job status. Now, I'm not saying promote him. I'm not saying he's a guy that shouldn't be, put under the microscope. Now, my only thing is I would get into the camp of fire Ryan Pace if the coach you want, say Jim Harbaugh. If Jim Harbaugh says, I want to come in there, I'll take the job, but I want my own GM. Then I fire Ryan Pace and I allow Jim Harbaugh to pick his own talent evaluator or slash GM. So that's the only way I would say Ryan Pace has to go. But for me, a lot of this has to go on the coaching staff in terms of I think this team is talented. It has talent on the football field. I think it was mismanaged in terms of the way it was coached and the position these players were put in order to not have their best talents, or they were put in the best position for their talents to go ahead and shine every given week, every given Sunday is how I feel, how I see it. So I think Ryan Pace gives the guy the talent. Yes, he's made mistakes. I acknowledge that, but I think if it was better coaching, if this team was better coached, you'd see a better result on the football field. And I think this team's a playoff team. That's my opinion. Again, I know I'm in a minority here. I know I'll take some hits, but that's the way I feel.
And I, even though Aldo was muted, I know exactly what he said. He's oh, you will be. And so, but Danny, isn't it a bit? And I understand. I get what you're saying, but is it at all concerning that in 7 years, though, he hasn't been able to put together the most important part, which is the coaching staff and the quarterback, because that's like saying, I'm going to build you a great house, but I just don't know how to put a roof on it.
That's the thing. And then that's 100% accurate, John. And that's something that, John Fox, we all know, was pushed on him. All right. Maybe he should have stood his ground and said, you know what? Because the rumors are he wanted Dan Quinn initially. Ryan Pace wanted to go interview Dan Quinn for the football job. But, Arnett Corsi and the powers that be said, no, let's go with John Fox. Okay, fine. Matt Nagy was a guy he interviewed and he brought in. So that's on him. That's all Ryan Pace. The Trubisky move was all on Ryan Pace. You guys know I'm on the record saying I think he got the quarterback right with Justin Fields. You just got to give him another year here and see this kid develop and blossom. So I think he got the quarterback position right. And I think in the future, it'll come to bear that he did get the quarterback position correct here. So I think once he gets the right head coach, and that's the thing, it's like, if you go out there, you nail this coaching staff, I think you can easily turn this team around. Like I said, they have talent on both sides of the football. You add to it with some additional draft picks. You add to it with some additional veteran free agents. And I think you can easily go from a 6-11 to 10-7 next year, and you can see yourself in the playoffs with the right coaching hire.
A lot of people in the chat room are saying that Pace, and they're correctly saying that Pace has mismanaged the cap. Ryan Pace came from the New Orleans Saints organization where Mickey Loomis every year was having troubles managing the cap because they kept deferring money to the following year. And everybody knew that eventually that credit card payment would come due. And that's what Ryan Pace has been doing with the Chicago Bears, deferring money for the future. And that really hurts the team. And when you add to that problem, that imperfection in Ryan Pace's performance, when you add to that the fact that they have brought in players like Jimmy Graham and then extended his contract, making it difficult to get rid of him in this year, but they still should have, because they would have had several $1 million available for offensive linemen or for other need position players. It just exacerbates the opinions by people like me and others in the chat room about Ryan Pace's performance. It just means that this guy, hey, you can hit on some draft picks. There's no doubt, and maybe if you were to total them up, you would say maybe he's hit above the average of the NFL. But that doesn't mean that you should be extended to do this more and more, because the record speaks for itself. You missed on the quarterback, and right now, and you may have missed on the quarterback because Matt Nagy wasn't the right guy to groom him. And I know that Danny has said it wouldn't have mattered. Mitchell Trubisky is not a guy that you can groom into being a starting quarterback. So you missed on that. You missed on the coach to groom these young quarterbacks. How many more chances are you going to get to screw this up? I don't understand.
The one thing on the cap thing, and although I'd like to see what you guys are, and people in the chat, and John as well, the Bears are going to have almost $50 million in cap space this offseason, right? So it's in terms of mismanaging the cap, and then there's some veterans. I know if they can go ahead and they can cut them, gain some more cap, there'll be some dead money in the cap. I know, but they have going into this offseason roughly around $50 million. That's plenty of money to go ahead and bring in some nice veterans here to kind of fulfill or kind of round out your roster here. However, teams like the Packers, they're $40 million over the cap, guys. They're going to lose guys like Devontae Adams, unless Aaron Rodgers has a about face and restructures his contract. They're $40 million over the cap. So the teams do this in the NFL. They borrow from the future to put a competitive team out on the field today. Remember, the Bears were going in with Nick Foles at $9-10 million a year, and this year they had Andy Dalton at $10 million a year. Those guys are going to come off the cap slowly but surely. I think Foles is going to drop down in terms of his guaranteed money. So, and now you have a rookie quarterback on a rookie deal, so I think that gives you more wiggle room on the salary cap. But that's the price of the NFL now. In order to be competitive, you're going to have to borrow from the future to win now, and I think that's what Ryan Pace did. And again, $50 million in salary cap this offseason, maybe even more if they make the right, cuts and trades and whatnot. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm a capologist, but from what I've been reading online, they're going to come up with at least $50 million, if not more. So I think, where is the mismanagement here in terms of who they lose because of salary cap mismanagement? I guess is my question to you guys.
But let me comment on the point that you made earlier. Is yes, every NFL general manager does that practice where they defer certain salaries to create more cap space, but they do it and get results. I'm not saying all. The ones that survive and continue to keep their jobs are the ones that are successful at it. Mickey Loomis has had playoff team after playoff team because he inherited or drafted or traded for. I don't think he traded for. I think he inherited Drew Brees. So he was able to keep his job with that practice. But their Super Bowl chances were severely diminished because of that practice, because they were making up for mistakes and having to acquire players through free agency because they traded away draft picks, because they failed on draft picks. So that's a key reason why this is a failure for Ryan Pace. The GMs, again, the GMs that do it right keep their jobs. The GMs that do it wrong head for the door.
Yeah, but Mickey Loomis had Drew Brees making that big mega contract, so he had to work around it. Seattle, John Schneider, he's one of the bright GMs in the league, right? He too, once they gave Russell Wilson that guaranteed money, he too had to kind of pay Peter, Rob, Paul, whatever that saying goes. But his defense, they're no longer, it's a shell of what it used to be, after they paid Russell Wilson. So when you have these big time quarterbacks and you hand out these big time contracts, your depth and some of the players on one side or the other, it tends to kind of diminish. But I still don't think Mickey Loomis is a bad GM. I don't think John Schneider is a bad GM. I don't think Brian Gutekunst is a bad GM. He's going to be $40 million over the cap. This is how you do it when you have big time quarterbacks getting those big time money.
So Roquan Smith is at the podium.
Your job. That's all it is. Everybody has a job every single play.
How is he dealing with the uncertainty of not knowing who the coach is going to be is the question.
Do you know what's going to happen tomorrow, Tuesday? I don't think anyone can answer, what if, all the uncertainty. That's life. So that's life. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Hey, we can all be here today, gone tomorrow. So we don't know. I don't live in that world. I live in present, and that's how I'll always be, and just look forward and move forward.
Can the president expect them to come to you for a contract extension at some point during the offseason?
Hey, the season ended. I'm healthy, man, and I'm just focused on, enjoying the last little moments with my guys in the locker room and on the bus and stuff like that. So that's my focus. The other stuff will take care of itself. I'm not worried about that because we all know. Oh, definitely. That's something I want to be here, be a Bear. It's been great being drafted into such a rich organization, rich in tradition. So it means a lot to definitely be here. But hey, when the time comes, it comes. But until then, I just bust my tail and just keep proving who the best in the game.
Thanks, guys.
All right. That was Roquan Smith. We'll get more interviews as they become available from Hallis Hall. Or not Hallis Hall, from Minnesota's. What's the name of that stadium?
US Bank.
US Bank Stadium. Thank you.
So going back to this Ryan Pace talk and the, stacking up the tenures, I get the arguments and I understand what both of you are saying. Going forward, though, one of my biggest concerns is if you decide to retain Ryan Pace and then you go out and you get a new head coach, and then in 2 or in 1 year or 2 years, this team still is not constructed.
No injuries.
Sounds like we got
that's a good
Matt
thing
Nagy
coming
already.
out of that game. Big picture, just from the game, we weren't able to get going in that big red zone from that plus 35 to the plus 25. You felt it. I felt like we controlled the game for the first half, and we got down there to that 4th and goal when we got the touchdown call back by Andy, and weren't able to get that play. We took some sacks on 4th down throughout. So when you have 80 plays like we were moving the football, doing different things, similar to the first time that we played these guys. We just weren't as productive. They have a good 3rd down defense. I think when you look at the numbers, 20-something attempts on 3rd and 4th down, 1 for 6 on 4th down. You felt that. And that's a credit to them. They did a great job there. So, we just didn't come out in the second half and finish them. And you got to give credit to them. The game kind of got away a little bit there towards the end, unfortunately, with the pick 6. So we were, that's where we're at right now, and was able to talk to the guys and just explain to them, hey, listen, this has been a long season, but at the same point in time, the thing that we all need to use these life experiences to make ourselves better, and how that is, and how you handle yourself. You look back and you say, did I stay the same? How do I, what did I change? And then how do I make myself better moving forward? It's important. These guys care in there. They care in that locker room. We care as coaches. And so, as I say every year to the team, the last 3 years and now this year, every NFL team is different heading into the next year. And whether it's players, whether it's coaches. And so individually reflect, see where we can get better. This isn't where we wanted to be or how we wanted to do it. But use it to get better. So that was kind of our message.
What is this moment like for you personally? Not only having today cave in on you in the second half.
Yeah. Sure. Well, there's a lot of realism to everything. When you're in this position and you're a leader of a team, and you go through and you try to create and build a culture like we have here. You want to be able to get better. You want to be able to go through the highs and lows throughout the year. And we know how the season went this year. We know how it went towards the end of the year, and then of course today's game. But right now, it's not really. I'll have time here when the season ends to be able to reflect as always. And these guys, I think the big picture is understanding that it hasn't been what we wanted. But again, trying to always keep this mentality of how do you use this to make yourself better, and even myself as a head coach, how do I make myself better, and then the players do that, and we know that we got to use that to get better down the road.
What have you learned, I guess, this season?
Yeah.
Yourself as a head coach and
Sure. No, I think probably for me as a head coach, when you go through this season, you understand that the other 31 coaches are going through the COVID protocol stuff that we have. You understand you have different positions that when you're competing and you're getting young guys to come in and compete, you have a coaching staff that you're dealing with. And for me, probably the biggest thing is just making sure that I think that it's not what we wanted, and how did we react to that as the weeks went by. When you go through a losing streak like we did, that can be difficult. That's challenging. And did you change, and how did you use it to get better, and did you fight through it? And we did that, but at the same point in time, you always look back and you say, okay, what was your record? And did you win enough? And did you get into playoffs to have an opportunity? Because once you get into playoffs, it's 0-0. And we didn't do that. So I think right now at this moment, I don't have a great answer other than, being able to reflect at the end of the year when I think about it a little longer. Again, my 4 years that I'm here, I look at a few things. You look at developing players, specifically at their positions, guys that you're part of in the draft process with Ryan and all of our personnel and our coaching and all the time that goes into that. And then you look into each specific season, and we had a really good first year together at 12-4, and now we continue to grow here. As you build through the draft, you have young guys that are getting better and better each year, and they're improving. We have some older guys too on this roster that have been a part of this, and just kind of seeing how that rolls. But I'm just proud of these players. I really am. I'm proud of the coaches. I think that I know how much they care, and I know how much they want to be better. And to me, that matters. Now, again, we understand our record. We know that that's real. That's a part of it. But do the guys care, and do they fight? And they do that.
Do you believe you have the answers for why the offense didn't work here? Or is that something that you will need to dig into in the offseason to be able to answer for when you have future opportunities?
Well, there's a lot that goes into that question. There's so much when you look at different teams and where they're at, and whether it's different positions, how they work together in all three phases, whatever that is, and how it's a team game. So we know we want to be better offensively. We know it hasn't been what we wanted it to be, but that's what you need to do as a coach, is try to find answers, and you get together with personnel and you figure out where you're weak at position wise. And then schematically, that's probably what part of your question too is, okay, I would say stating the obvious that we need to be better in the red zone, right? I don't think we were good enough this year in the red zone. So being better there. And whether that's players, whether it's scheme, whatever it is, you got to score more points when you get down in the red zone. Yeah, again, I've never been in this position before, and for me, it's I continue to just go about business like normal, and I mean that. I've had conversations as nothing has changed, as I've told you guys a few days ago, and I know this. Whatever is supposed to happen will happen, and I'm a positive person, and again, I think that it's about these players right now, and these players have fought their asses off to play hard. They sacrifice their body every day, and everything else will take care of itself how it's supposed to.
Now, we've heard you guys talk, over the years about, when you're worried about the next week's opponent, you can kind of just focus on that, not worry about the outside noise. Did it creep in at any point for you in the last 4 to 6 weeks? It seems like once the noise outside got louder, it would have to find its way in something.
No, it's probably for people that are outside the building. You guys, everybody has a job that they need to do to create stories and to have things to write about, both in a good way and sometimes negatively. That's a part of where we're at right now. But that's not leaving and that's not changing. It's about how you handle it, And so there's true reports, there's false reports, and again, you need to be able to create a wall. And I think that's part of the strength of the character of your building. We went through that on Thanksgiving. And that's an experience for me that I'll always be able to use and understand that when you see guys that pull together and play together, when you go through something like that, it actually brings you closer. And that's really what happened with these guys. So they're all distractions. And we always talk about eliminate distractions. And I think the players have done a great job with that. It's not easy, but they've done a great job with it.
Man, when you came here, you acknowledged the opportunity you had to be the coach of the Bears. It hasn't worked out like it has. Are you disappointed in yourself? Are you disappointed in circumstances? What how do you just feel about the way the whole thing has transpired?
Yeah, no, you look at the big picture of where we're at, and there's different seasons, there's different records, and you build these relationships. And after every year, you can reflect and look into the reasons as to why you got to where you got to and how you get better. And then you do that from a head coach's perspective, you do it from a teaching perspective, you do it from schematics perspective. And but again, when I'm the position that I'm in right now, I just feel like it's my job as a leader to make sure that I continue to stay positive with these guys. And whatever has happened in my 4 years here, good and bad, there's a reason for all of it. And even selfishly and individually for me, there's a reason why this is happening right now. And when this stuff happens, it again, like I told the guys in there, let this stuff right here refine you, not define you. That's important, right? And so I'm sure you guys have bad days every now and then too, right? You have a bad day. How do you react to it? Do you stay negative and stay in a bad mood for 2 weeks, or do you get out of it? And so in this profession as a leader, you got to make sure you stay positive. You got to make sure you lead, and then you got to use it to make yourself better. And regardless of what happens, whether it's with another player or myself, I promise you I'm going to do that. And I will let this refine me and not define me.
You sound like a guy that's pretty much comfortable no matter what happens. You kind of accept it. Those things.
Well, it's not that. It's the fact that, again, when you're the day that I signed up to be the head coach here in Chicago, right? On a year-to-year basis, you're always understanding that what comes with your position, right? That's real. That's life. And so the situation that we're in this year is one where we know our record's not good enough. We all want to be better. We know that. So this is all stuff that comes attached to it. So you got to deal with it. You can't run from it. You got to be real. You got to talk about it. You got to understand it. And then you got to be able to have a plan, understanding individually, but also as a leader and a team leader with these guys, because these guys deserve that. We got great players, man. We got great people. We got great coaches, and I just respect all them too much. And so sometimes I'm very honest, and I I talk about that stuff, and I always try to hit every avenue.
We've heard two words from you in terms of your partnership with Ryan. It's been collaboration and conviction, right? And assuming that's completely true,
Sure.
you guys are collaborating, you guys have had conviction on all the decisions,
Yep.
draft picks, free agent signings, other personnel decisions. What do you think that's gone wrong about those things, even though you had such conviction on those things in the front end?
I don't see it that way as what's gone wrong. I actually look at it the other way. I think when you look at what's gone right with the players that we have in this building right now, and since we've been together, I think we all understand that this isn't something that just happens in 1 or 2 years. When you draft a player, it takes a little bit of time to get that player going. And then when you draft a lot of players together, it takes several years. And now all of a sudden you get to the point to where they're rocking and rolling because they're now 3 or 4 years into it. And that's where we're at right now. That's what's exciting, is knowing that there's a nice group of young leaders on this team right now that are good football players. And so that's probably what you say about the collaboration and communication that we have, is that has not changed with Ryan and myself from the very first day. And it hasn't changed us as people. When sometimes adversity can strike, people start acting different. Ryan's not different. I'm not different. Too much respect. You do things the right way. And I'm proud of the way that we've handled all of this together, and the players that we've talked about, selected, our personnel department, our coaching staff, all of it. There's a good thing going here right now. And there's a really good franchise quarterback that's here that's going to be good for a long time. And both Ryan and I were a part of that.
All right, I think we've had enough of that.
Yeah.
Please, thank you. Although I was like, please make the pain stop.
Yeah.
I wrote a couple of things. At the very beginning of his press conference, he says, we took sacks. Yeah, because of your play calling. Danny immediately is nodding his head. He knew.
Yes. Force you want the goal line. Hand the damn ball off.
So it's like, how can you not have any self-awareness that you were the reason, as the play caller, as the ultimate play caller, that you took sacks? Then he says he has no answers that make sense. He has no answers that make sense. I mean, that is, again, about self-awareness. He has no clue whatsoever that he's the biggest problem. I mean, even beyond Ryan Pace, who I dislike, he is the biggest problem for these failures, for these catastrophic failures we've seen over and over again. Guys, I don't want to pontificate, so please take over.
Just real quick, I just want to, this is exactly what I was talking about. There is some talent here that the Bears could have won 3 or 4 more games this year, and they could have been in the playoffs. And it's all, for me, on this coaching staff. Now, I think this coaching staff, if this talent was just, they had no talent whatsoever on this roster, then I'd be like, yeah, Ryan Pace has got to go. But he's giving him some talent, right? And a lot of times these GMs, they kind of placate to the coach. The coach wanted Nick Foles, so Ryan Pace went and got him. The coach wanted Andy Dalton, so Ryan Pace went and got him. Look at Chris Ballard. Chris Ballard gave up a first-round pick for Carson Wentz because Frank Reich said, I can coach him to and take us to a Super Bowl. Guess what? The Colts are out of the playoffs, and they still owe the Eagles a first-round pick. And everyone loves Chris Ballard. So don't tell me these guys don't placate to the coaches staff as well. So this is what I just don't give Ryan Pace the fire Ryan Pace. I don't get it right now. I just think this guy has done, I'd say about a C+, maybe B- minus job overall in terms of accumulating talent on this roster. I just don't think he's the guy that's got to go, immediately. Again, if your top target is Jim Harbaugh and Harbaugh says, you know what, I want my own GM guy, then okay, then I want Harbaugh and I want this guy gone, then I'm bringing his own GM. That's why I kind of just say, this team has some talent. It's the coaching staff couldn't get it all out of there.
John, let me butt in just for a second. When you have collaboration and you're bragging about the collaboration, then you cannot, and I'm not saying you, Danny, when they say they have collaboration and they are bragging about collaboration, then we cannot say that it isn't Ryan Pace, that Ryan Pace went out and got Matt Nagy's guys, because they're supposed to be collaborating. So if Matt Nagy says, I want Andy Dalton, and Ryan Pace shouldn't just say, okay, I'll go get him for you. That's not collaboration. Then you're being a lapdog for your head coach. And so that's the problem that I have with that line of thinking, Danny.
Well, the thing is, if the coach says, I can win this year with Andy Dalton, and you say, all right, but I'm going to go get myself a quarterback. And then they position themselves to go get Justin Fields. So now Ryan Pace has secured that long-term potential answer at quarterback. But now Andy Dalton is there because Matt Nagy says, I can get this guy to at least get us 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 victories and get us in the playoffs. This is where I think, again, the collaboration, and that's where maybe Ryan Pace has a fault there, is that he gives way too much leeway to his coaching staff, maybe listens to them way too much. That could be an issue there for Ryan Pace.
A few takeaways from what I heard from Matt Nagy here. One, it sounded a lot like an exit interview. He was reflecting a lot on his time in Chicago, talking about his first year, talking about his last year. Also, I thought it was kind of weird that he said we have a franchise quarterback here, and Ryan and I were a part of that.
Yeah.
I thought
Took
that
credit
was
for that one, didn't he?
Yeah, that was strange. Like, hey, we got Justin Fields here, so any success that Justin Fields here has in the future, make sure you thank me and Ryan Pace. Is kind of what it sounded like, which I thought was a bit strange. Also, it sounded like he was interviewing for his next job, talking about how it's all about the players and always taking the high road on things and understanding the realism that goes on with being in the NFL. So it sounded like he was putting out the horn that he's available and he'll be a team player wherever he goes. One thing I wanted to finish my thought on what I was talking about before Matt Nagy took the stand there was my concern is if you do retain Ryan Pace and this team in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years is not constructed in a way that can make a deep run in the playoffs or at least compete for a division. But the new head coach is facilitating Justin Fields in a way where he is developing leaps and bounds, is becoming a very good quarterback in this league. Then do you have to fire Ryan Pace, but then keep the head coach and say whatever GM candidates are coming in, hey, you got to keep that head coach? Kind of like what we're seeing, what we're seeing in New York right now, where they're going to maybe keep Joe Judge but fire Dave Gettleman, and the new GM is going to be hamstrung by saying, "This is your head coach, this is your quarterback, good luck." So my concern is if this team is not competing in a year or 2 years, and they move off of Ryan Pace, is it going to be as attractive as a job to saying, "Hey, you're keeping that head coach, and you got Justin Fields," or are they just going to fire the head coach that they just brought in at the end of Ryan Pace's tenure? So I don't, to be able to kind of stagger it like that concerns me, because if this team doesn't compete in a couple years, then are you just going to fire another head coach in 2 years, or are you just going to swap out a new GM? And that's where some of my concerns lie.
I think that's a great point. And Danny, really quickly, that's a great point. And it's what I've been kind of trying to touch on is they need synchronicity. You got to bring in a GM and a coach and that quarterback at the same time. You can't do that this year. You're not going to give up on Justin Fields. But now you need to get leadership in there that is in sync. GM and coach at the same time, and then give them 5 years to get this thing right with Justin Fields. And if you can't do that, then you start over with a new GM and coach. Danny,
I agree with you. Okay, yeah, John, you're right. And in a perfect world, it'd be in sync, right? The GM would hire the coach, then they go in tandem, go get their quarterback. But the Bears always seems like they're firing the GM, keeping the coach, firing the coach, keeping the GM. I just think now with Justin Fields here, you bring in a coaching staff, and this is Ryan Pace's absolute last straw. And I know a lot of you guys think he shouldn't get a last straw. That's fine. But I'm saying you bring in his coach. Now you have Justin Fields and this coach, Ryan Pace. If 2-3 years this thing is not getting better and Justin Fields continues to kind of go down, not develop, then it's a whole clean slate again. Again, unfortunately, the unfortunate part of that is we have to wait 2-3 years and see if that experiment goes through. That's the tough part, is being fans, but that's got to be it. Now he comes in, he brings in, if Ryan Pace stays, he brings in another coach. Now they work on developing Justin Fields, and as long as Justin Fields is getting better and improving and developing into that starting quarterback, that potential, that we all saw when he came out of college, Ryan Pace is gonna stay here, that coach is gonna stay here, and I think they're gonna continue to develop around that quarterback and continue to hopefully be successful on the football field and stack up those wins.
One thing that about Nagy, what he said in the press conference, he talked about one of the things that he's proud of is the development of players, and tons of people in the chat room were saying, development of what players? And so the thing is that on Friday's press conference, he was asked what is wrong with the offense. And one of the excuses that he offered was it's difficult to develop certain players. It takes time. So he was using that as a crutch excuse for why the offense isn't scoring points. Basically, he was talking about Mitchell Trubisky and Justin Fields, I assume, right? And now he's using it as, this is what I did good. Danny, you had a thought.
No, I'm saying, like, what players they develop. I've been harsh on Mike Fury, the receiver coach. I don't see any young receivers developing on this team. In terms of offensive linemen, we've had a change in offensive line coaches. I see some positivity there with a Larry Borum, but yeah, nothing really to write home about. You have to go and get a 39-year-old, left tackle off a fishing boat to come in and get a yeoman's work this year. Hats off to Jason Peters. He did a solid job at left tackle. But I'm saying, like, what players are developing here defensively? Eddie Jackson, that touchdown today, he turns around, barely looks for the football, gives up an easy touchdown to Justin Jefferson. What are you doing? You were all pro safety, and now you can't even make a play on football anymore. So, I think players are kind of regressing a little bit. But we'll see what the next coaching staff does here.
There is one of the things about Sean Desai. I was very, very complimentary of him and have been for several weeks. I really do believe he's going to be an outstanding head coach in the future. But one of the things that is a problem is because he's upstairs in that bird's eye view calling plays, he's not down there on the sideline, or maybe doesn't have a guy down there on the sideline firing up his players and making sure that they're playing 4 quarters. Mike Pettin would have been a perfect guy down there on the sidelines telling Eddie Jackson, stay in the game, and saying it with force and authority, because it does seem, not just that play, Danny. What about the other touchdown that they gave up where there's 4 defensive backs in the end zone and everybody's looking around except at where the receiver, that receiver is wide open to score a touchdown. That was one of the most embarrassing plays in Chicago Bears history in my mind. Those were 2 of them right there.
2 receivers were wide open on that Osborne touchdown. Jefferson was standing there waving, basically wide open. Osborne was wide open, and then there was 4 defensive backs, I assume, having a book club meeting in the middle of the end zone because they weren't doing anything else. Like there was literally, they were just standing there while the 2 guys flared out and both of them were open. Not to take this off on a completely different tangent here, but when do you think Matt Nagy actually gets the news that he's fired? Because the Broncos wasted very little time. They fired Vic Fangio today, the day after. Although we kind of talked about this earlier, I thought that if this game was in Chicago and he was already home, he might have already gotten the message, hey, we're going to announce this tonight, and then we'll be done with it. But they're in Minnesota right now. So are they going to wait until he gets back to Hallis Hall, bring him in, say, hey, thanks, here's your watch and your honey glazed ham, thanks for your service, and then send him on his way? Do we think tomorrow morning, like around maybe 8 Central, 9 Eastern is when this all goes down?
Well, there's a team meeting scheduled for tomorrow at 9 a.m. The entire team has been called into Hallis Hall. So I'm assuming before then news will break, if not later on tonight. He'll know. He'll be given the official word. I think he knows. I think, I don't know if he's spoken to with Georgia or Ted or whoever's going to do the firing. Ryan Pace, I'm not even sure, but I think he knows he's gone. I just think the official word will leak out either tonight or early tomorrow morning. But yeah, there's a 9 a.m. Team meeting scheduled for tomorrow.
But the weird thing is, in the press conference, he said that he hasn't been told anything. So he's assuming everything is the same. He goes, I told you guys, I have not been told anything. And I'm assuming that everything's the same. But in his gut, he knows he's gone because
he's lying. He's lying.
You think he's lying?
Yeah, just like he told you, but he told the press on Friday, it's not enough time to develop players. And today he's talking about he was proud about the player development that they've had over the 4 years. So this is a guy who speaks out of both sides of his mouth sometimes, and it just like when he gets caught in it, he doesn't know how to react. So I think he's been told, not officially obviously, but I think he's been told and he knows he's done.
And Swanky is 100% right. The entire organization needs a restructure. This is the year where this organization says, okay, we've been doing it all wrong, and we have to now look at the very, very top and do things differently. And, and so what worries me is that Ryan Pace is still going to have some sort of authority. Now, I will offer this caveat to Ryan Pace. He was hired when he was, 37 years old. And that is a very young age for a general manager. He's only 44. And so he has done some good things. And so perhaps keeping him there is a chance that he could progress to be an acceptable or even really good GM. But my confidence level in that is very, very low.
What if he goes out and makes the perfect hire? What if that makes the perfect hire, and this team is competing for the playoffs year in year out, competing for the NFC North title year in year out? Then are you going to change and say, yeah, the Bears made a right move by keeping Ryan Pace?
Then that would be great. I just wonder if that perfect hire isn't going to see behind the ruse that is Ryan Pace, and there will be internal fighting. Listen, I was never a big fan of John Fox, but the reality of the situation is that those two guys went to battle and John Fox lost. And it was very cowardly of Ryan Pace to draft Mitchell Trubisky and not tell his head coach until 5 minutes before they made the official decision, that they were picking Trubisky over Fox's preferred quarterback, Deshaun Watson. And if that's the way that Ryan Pace typically does business, which is why they've been heralding collaboration. We don't have those internal fights anymore and disagreements. We collaborate now. But if that's an indication of how Ryan Pace has done business in the past, he probably will do it again.
Well, see, that's the thing is John Fox wanted Mike Glennon, and him and his offensive coordinator, Dowell Loggins, wanted Mike Glennon, the veteran. And then Ryan Pace went and got his quarterback, which was Mitchell Trubisky, which was a bust. Same thing here. Right. Didn't work out. Right. So here, Matt Nagy wanted Dalton / Foles. He went and got him his quarterback. Well, he went and got his quarterback of the future, Justin Fields. He does the collaboration thing. I think it's not a ruse. I think it actually does. That's what he does at a house hall. He sits and listens to everybody, and then he collaborates, and then he gives his coach the veteran he wants, and then he goes and gets that young guy. That's how I see it from the outsiders looking in. I might be wearing Ryan Pace color glasses. I'm not sure, but I'm just saying I think this guy has done a solid job in terms of putting talent on the roster. Has he been perfect? By far, no, he's not been perfect. And if they fire him tomorrow, I'm not going to sit here and defend him and say, oh, he deserved to keep his job. He's made mistakes, huge mistakes that warrant a firing. I just don't think he's the overall problem. I think if, like I said, there was enough talent on this team with the right coaching staff, they could have made the playoffs this year.
Isn't that a hindrance, though, to say, I'm going to collaborate? I'll give you your quarterback and I'll get mine. Like, I just feel like is that more collaboration, or is that just giving in? Because I think that you have to take a stand at some point and say, I don't want this guy. I'm the general manager. I don't think that's a good fit. I don't think $45 million for Mike Glennon is a good plan. I think this is the guy we should draft, and this is the direction we should be going. Because if your job is roster construction, you're responsible for that team this year, next year, and the year after that, whereas the head coach is coaching for his life literally every year. He wants to try to stack as many wins as he can every single year because he might not have a next year, whereas GMs are sometimes given a little bit more of a leash to put their plan together. So if the head coach says, I need this guy because he's thinking, I need to get to 9 wins, I need to get to 10 wins, and the GM saying, we got to play the long game with this because we're not in a position to win right now, doesn't the GM have to stand up and say, listen, I'm not giving you this guy for $10 million on 1 year because it's wasting money out of our cap. I'm not doing it.
But the key is he's getting that bridge quarterback for the young guy. So he's getting in the veteran, the coach wants the veteran, brings in the veteran for 1 year, that bridge quarterback, if you will, and then he brings in his young guy.
But he had one this year. He had a bridge quarterback in Foles, and he went out and got another one.
Again, that's I put that on Matt Nagy and his coaching staff, not on Ryan Pace.
But I don't think you needed 2 bridge quarterbacks for Justin Fields because you didn't end up using either one of them.
But I think Nick Foles and Matt Nagy had a falling out last year because of the offense and because of some of the comments that Nick Foles made to the media that Matt Nagy said, I want to work with Andy Dalton. That's just me kind of, again,
that's an ego thing.
Guessing.
That's an ego thing because I don't want to be his coach because he said mean things about me. And then he should have been shown the door a long time ago because guess what? We've been saying mean things about him for 4 years. So
I agree with you there. I agree with you there. He should have been shown the door last year, in my opinion. But
I think the most frustrating thing for Bears fans is we're saying the same things we were saying at the end of last year. The only difference is we have Justin Fields to look forward to. But at the end of the year last year, we're saying if they bring these guys back, we're going to be having the same conversations we're having at the end of 2020 and in 2021. And guess what? For the most part, we are. We're having the same conversations we had at the end of last year, except for we have a promising prospect at quarterback. But other than that, it's the exact same conversations we had last year.
Yeah, but the only thing now, last year, the McCaskies and Phillips had a leeway because they made the playoffs. Yeah, they snuck in and kind of tail in there. They made the playoffs. There was a playoff game. They didn't have a losing record, so they had a reason to go ahead and kind of continue on. But I bet you if Matt Nagy and them had made the playoffs this year, no way he was going to lose his job at the end of this year either. So I think that's. But the fact now that they didn't make the playoffs and had that big mess of a press conference last year, that now they have no choice but to get rid of Matt Nagy.
Just once, though, I'm sorry, Aldo, I'll say this, and I'll turn it over to you. The only thing I want this organization to do is actually set goals. Because last year we heard about, there was like this, I don't know if it was supposed to be like an iron-fisted kind of thing, but it was like, we need to see progress. Well, that's a very open-ended thing to say. That's a very subjective term. What does progress really mean? Does progress mean making the playoffs? Does it mean winning the division? Does it mean making it the NFC Championship game? Does it mean a Super Bowl? Does it mean drafting a new quarterback? What the hell does progress actually mean? I want someone to come in and say, we have to win the division in 2 years. At least Lovie Smith came in and said, I'm here to beat Green Bay. At least that was something you could put on a piece of paper and say, we have to attain this goal. The problem is nobody in this organization sets a goal. No one holds anybody accountable. And it's just like, well, we'll figure out whether or not this was a successful season at the end of the season. We'll figure that out afterwards. No, set a goal. Set an actual tangible goal for a team and a franchise. And if you don't meet it, then this season is a failure. Don't decide whether or not you had a good season after the season. We can't keep just playing this subjective bullcrap game that we've been playing for almost 40 years. There has to be someone holding everyone accountable to say, you know what, Ted, you're not doing a very good job. You know what, George, things haven't been going very well since you stepped in here. You know what, Ryan, 7 years. I don't care how many draft picks you hit. You haven't won a playoff game in the better part of a decade. Hey, all these head coaches, why are you being so stubborn in the way you're doing it? And why are we giving you an extra year when we don't think you're going to be able to adjust? For once, I want there to be a finish line that we can cross rather than deciding what the finish line is after we run the race.
And that's why I think Aldo, the way we talked about on Bare Truth, the way he came up with this architect or team structure, if you will, where we have one football operations guy, right? Someone from the outside come in. Now Ryan Pace if you keep him, reports to him directly, and the new coach reports to him directly. So kind of like I think Aldo said, the Packers have something similar set up with Mark Murphy and all those guys there. So that way you have one guy at the top of your football chain there, and he's the one who makes all the decisions. So you have to talk to Ted Phillips. You have to worry about George McCaskey. He's the guy who hires and fires people. And I think that if that would happen today or tomorrow or this week or whatnot, they bring in a football operations guy. He's the top of the chain. Ryan Pace reports directly to him. And now they go and they hire a new head coach who reports directly to the football operations guy. I think that would work, John. I think that would kind of answer some of because now that top guy, that top chief there, tell, hey, we are out here to win the division, Super Bowl, blah, 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 all this stuff. And if that doesn't happen, he's got to then report to say why it didn't happen. And if he's got to fire somebody, he can fire them individually.
I'm 100%, and I'll say this real quick. I agree with you. There needs to be more football minds. I understand that the Bears can screw up any hire at any time. I get that, but I feel like there needs to be more football minds in that organization to actually make football decisions rather than having one guy whose main goal might be making money and then also puts together some roster construction in the meantime. There needs to be someone 100% committed to the football operations, overseeing all that to put a good product on the field.
Yep.
I was giving some thought to how this press conference with Bears management should go. And, I don't think it's a for sure thing. It's going to happen tomorrow morning, knowing the Chicago Bears. This could be a Tuesday or Wednesday happening. But if it does whenever it happens, I would love for somebody in the media to start this way when addressing, because it'll probably be George McCaskey and Ted Phillips first. Could you guys please do us the courtesy and the fans of the Chicago Bears the courtesy of giving us authentic responses to our questions? Last year's press conference has been widely evaluated as being a fiasco for you two gentlemen up there. You did not answer questions. You did not satiate the anger that has been growing among Chicago Bears fans. You did everything wrong. And so as a reporter who is representing, sharing information that you deliver to Chicago Bears fans, we would appreciate it if you first and foremost gave us the most honest answers you can. And that is going to be a lot of the questions that we're going to ask is about the evaluation that you have and how you've gone about evaluating the general manager and the coach and in George McCaskey's play, evaluating the team president's role, and tell us exactly why. Give us concrete reasons why you like their performance or why you dislike their performance or what you think you haven't made a decision on yet in terms of their performance. And then for Ryan Pace, some of my questions have to deal with, I would say, a lot of people in the Chicago media have started to characterize your performance as the general manager as cowardly because you will not address the media during the season and only choose to do so 2 or 3 times during the season. And 2 of those times before the draft and before the combine, you're not offering any concrete evaluations on things. You're telling us because of competitive advantage, I because of competitive reasons, I can't answer those questions. So you are basically never giving us any honest answers. You're never doing that. And so I want to know from you, if you are going to remain in this organization, are you going to do anything to change the cowardly actions that you've been accused of and address the media, talk to the fans, answer questions as truthfully as you can, give us honest evaluations? Can you do that? And can you answer this question? Why did you bring Andy Dalton to be the Bears quarterback when you had Nick Foles and you spent all this money on quarterbacks like Mike Glennon and so forth that were complete failures? Why did you bring back Jimmy Graham when you had Jesper Horsted, a up-and-coming tight end that you should have played more downs on more snaps on this field? And why was Leonard Floyd released? This was one of your major first-round draft pick acquisitions. He's now playing for the Rams and has been given a new contract because of his performance. What happened with Leonard Floyd? I've got 100 questions for Ryan Pace that he needs to answer, and the Chicago media hopefully will pose those questions to Ryan Pace and George McCaskey and Ted Phillips.
He won't though, Aldo, because this team, this organization, it's ingrained in them to act like they're guarding the nuclear codes. They always act like they're guarding this, this holy grail of information, because that's clearly been working out for them for the past couple of decades. They're clearly been so successful. They don't want anyone stealing their secrets, which is laughable. But the idea is, if you answer the question directly, you're going to see how inept we are. So I've been saying, you might as well keep your mouth shut and everyone assume you're the problem, then open your mouth and prove them right. So you're just going if I answer your question, you're going to see that I'm bad at my job. If I directly answer your question, I'm going to show my hand that we screwed up. Instead, we're going to get the same thing we got last year and talk about how awesome the culture is in Chicago, how everyone wants that culture. And besides the quarterback, we've done everything we're right. So you're going to get the same lip service of how awesome the Chicago Bears are, how great the organization is, how you're going to get a laundry list of everything they've done right. And then they're going to promise to get it right. Then they're going to promise to fix the things they've done wrong, but they're not going to tell you how, and they're not going to actually admit to what they did wrong. They're just going to throw out this general blanket statement. We're going to fix it. What's it? Oh, well, you guys know. No. Tell us what it is and how you're going to fix it. You're never going to get that out of this organization.
Danny, John knows the secret to having a successful marriage. Don't say anything.
Yeah, of course I like that. Yeah, of course you look great in that, babe. Yeah, of course you do. But no, although first of all, if any member of the media actually asked those questions, they'd get a glare from the PR guy, and then they get threatened that they're going to have their press credentials taken away. Second of all, I think Aldo should apply for press credentials and go up there and ask those damn questions himself. Okay, that's the thing. And then the third thing is, again, this just kind of just cries again for a head of football operations, a VP of football operations guy that can sit up there and be transparent. He's not the one trying to draft these players. He's not the one going out making these trades. That's his GM. So he can sit out there. He can be forthright to an extent, right? Give you honest answers to your questions and say, hey, you know what, guys, you're right. We have not been successful here because A, B, C, and D. This is how we're going to go ahead and give us somewhat of a layout in terms of, I'm not giving us, bullet point of what they're going to do exactly in the offseason, but give us something in terms of an overview. Say, all right, we got to clean this up. We got to clean this up. We got to clean this up. And this is how we envision this organization moving forward here and contending for division titles and then contending for the NFC Championship and eventually contending for a Super Bowl. That's what we need. This just cries out for someone, a football guy, not a guy that's been an executive somewhere or whatnot. An actual football guy to sit up top of that chain there and just answer all these questions to the media and kind of be a shield for Ryan Pace. So guys, we know he's not comfortable in front of the media. You could tell he's not comfortable answering questions in front of the media. Matt Nagy hems and haws, and he's a good guy, and he talks around the questions all the time. Another guy's not comfortable in front of the media as well. So we need a football guy that is confident, that has an idea of what's going on, has an idea how to build an organization, how to answer those tough questions, and be honest and be open, but not giving away all the details and all the, like you said, John, the secret codes or anything like that, but just give us something like you give us an idea, reassure the fan base that what you're doing as an organization. And right now, unfortunately, we don't get that.
Oh man, I think I wish I could just go to sleep right now and wake up to my phone going off like crazy saying Matt Nagy has been fired. He's quick on the air because I'm just going to spend the sleepless night tonight, wondering, are the Bears somehow going to screw this up and they're going to find a position for Matt Nagy in the organization? Matt Nagy, your new quarterback coach.
He's gone.
It would be so Bears to just try to think they're the smartest team in the room and be like, what we actually need to do is move him over to here. And then we slide Ryan Pace over to here. Actually, Dowell Loggins, let's see what he's up to. Let's just bring him back. So I don't have a whole lot, like I said, I don't have a whole lot of confidence in the Chicago Bears, but I have hope. And I believe Tyler Ellis said this a couple weeks ago. I hope that we're going to luck out eventually. We're going to just fall into something eventually.
The Bulls did. I mean, John's running the Bulls gear tonight. Look at the Bulls. Talk about a total reconstruction of the organization. Just a whole new management crew, the whole new build-up and everything like that. And
how did they do it, Danny?
They cleaned house. Cleaned house.
Okay.
It took Michael Reinsdorf taking over and going out and talking to other people in the NBA and gaining the name of Arturas Karnisovas to come in and being the vice president of football operations, and then hiring the general manager and then hiring the coach and so on and so forth. But that's the thing is who's going to go on? Do you have confidence in George McCaskey or Ted Phillips going and talking to these people? Now rumors are George is doing his due diligence, right? He's talking, and whether it's Tony Dungy or some other names that have been thrown out there, maybe he goes out there, maybe he brings in a VP of football operations, and maybe that person can then monitor Ryan Pace for a year as a GM, and then he goes and hires a head coach. Maybe that would be something that would shock me and probably actually please me at the same time, because now you still have Ryan Pace there, drafting the talent, and then we have a guy on top of him there, a football guy on top of him, watching him and monitoring him, making sure if there's any missteps that Ryan Pace is held accountable for that. The same thing with the head coach as well, the future head coach.
Guys, I think we have exhausted everything we can talk about for now, but we will be back here as soon as news leaks out or is official about Matt Nagy's fate and maybe Ryan Pace. We will definitely be on immediately after the press conference. Greg Gabriel and I are scheduled to do a show tomorrow. The start time will depend on any news that's coming out of Hallis Hall. But rest assured, we have got tons of coverage, Chicago Bears coverage this week. And John, why don't you tell people about the Wednesday extravaganza we've got planned?
Yeah, the season finale of Buffon 55. We're bringing everybody in. This is a big tent event. We're bringing in Tyler Ellis from DeBear Debate. We're going to have a segment where we go back and forth. Danny and Neil from Draft on Tap, you guys are going to go over some of the prospects. The Bears don't have a first-round pick, but they need a lot of help. We'll see what they could be zeroing in on come draft time, what they can do, maybe they could trade down, trade up. Who knows, depending on who the general manager is. So we're going to break all of that down. Obviously, the B55 segment. I got 5 rants for you. Aldo and Alyssa Barbieri will be on there. We'll just have a therapy session about everything. Nasli Briones, who does the Bears Previa, the all Spanish speaking preview that we have here on the Barroom Network. She's going to be on to talk about Bears fans on an international from an international standpoint. It's just overall going to be a great show, a great way to put a exclamation point on this season. We've had a great season of Buffon 55, so it'll be nice just to bring everybody onto one show and just have one big blowout.
There you go. And then Danny, Neil Stopchinski, and I had a brief meeting to talk about Draft on Tap for this upcoming season. We've got some ideas on how we're going to do that differently. Danny, you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, excited for another season of Draft on Tap, guys. Season's over; it's draft season now. So yeah, I think January 26th will be our first show. That's what we have kind of penciled in the books right now, where we're going to go through, and Neil and I and Aldo, we're going to review in terms of the Bears, last draft class, some of the players from the previous draft class overall in the NFL, and then we're going to start previewing the Senior Bowl and the East-West Shrine Game, and from then on, we're going to start talking about position-specific players that Neil and I feel that could come into the organization here on the Bears and help them get better as the future goes on. So, I mean, right away, I'm looking for offensive linemen. I'm looking for cornerbacks. I'm looking for wide receivers. Those are my top 3 players on my list in terms of position groups that I'm going to be scouting right away here for the Bears.
And I just want to say, I want to thank John Buffon and Tyler Ellis. This is the season finale of Bear football, unless something weird happens and we, because of COVID, we're pushed into the playoffs next week. That ain't going to happen. But it's been a blast talking after these games, despite the disappointing season. But doing it with Tyler and John has been a blast. And nobody displays passion for the Chicago Bears like John Buffon. Just watching his veins pop out of his neck every week has been a joy. And we got a lot more John Buffon and Danny Sherman and everybody else coming up during the offseason. We'll have plenty of Bears coverage. Any last final word before I hit the final theme song, guys?
It's been real. Appreciate everyone listening or watching. It's incredible that people would still come and listen to us and watch us after this season. It's just like after these games, it's incredible therapy, that you still want to talk about the Bears. So I appreciate therapy. Whether it's your first time or 500th time. Thank you so much for tuning in.
That's right. And remember, the doctor's office here at the Barroom is always open. That's our
big couch. Big couch.
A real big couch. All right. Goodbye, everybody.